Welcome to the Access for Who podcast, a 4-part mini-series that looks to begin a conversation on the digitization of collections of African heritage. This series of discussions attempts to unpack the necessary care and ethics required when seeking to digitize African heritage, particularly in the age of restitution. While digitization is often considered a strategy for future-oriented safekeeping, distribution, and greater engagement, we ask for who and for what purposes? And are we making decisions about digitization that ensure these objectives are met in ethical, equitable ways? I'm your host, Chao, Tayiana, Maina,
and Molemo of Open Restitution Africa. Let's talk about access for who, for what.
For who, for what.
Well, on the whole, there's kind of been a denial and distancing from the violences of history, and that's just transferred now into this digital space. So I think the optimism of, the kind of UNESCO sharing culture for everybody is wonderful. And I think on the level of education and accessibility, it's great. But then even when we talk about accessibility, it's like, what are we speaking about when some people have fiber optic internet and others don't?
And so a lot of the discussion around that was obviously digital media and how we can use digital media as a way of restoring information, mainstreaming information, functionalizing it, and obviously archiving it. The more we had discussions, the more we realized that digital media could actually be a way we could test how to archive indigenous knowledge systems, how to document them, and how to restore them.
Yes, I think as African practitioners, we don't necessarily have a legacy to uphold. I think we are taking from what didn't work. We're taking that along and going forward, but we are also not reinventing per se, but we have a chance to create something new and exciting.
Join us as we speak with practitioners across the spectrum of heritage, digital, intellectual property, and museum work. We will explore and think together about the difficult questions that digitization of African heritage brings to the fore. But we will also look at the many propositions, some simple and some more extended, to do this work better for the future. We are
Chao, Tayiana, Maina,
and Moiloa of Open Restitution Africa. Let's talk about access for who, for what.
For who, for what.
This podcast is brought to you by Open Restitution Africa, a collaboration between African Digital Heritage and Andani Africa. The podcast is produced by Chao, Tayiana, Maina, and Moiloa, with Pumzile Nomboso Twala and Letabolaka Gumede on research. Thank you to Josh Chiundiza for the music, Karugu Maina on design, and Annelien van Heembeek on editing.
The podcast was made possible by 99 Questions at the Stiftung Humboldt Forum in Berliner Schloss. This podcast is also available in zine form in French and German at www.openrestitution.africa and www.humboldtforum.org. Thank you for joining us.